And we are back. Our next guest thrives on witnessing personal growth through some meaningful conversations. Now, with a decade of experience in talk therapy, their commitment to destigmatizing mental health has really paved the way for a successful career. And joining me now is the founder of Counseling the Comfort, Quinelle Hickman. And thank you so much for being with us. Hey.
Hi, hello. How are you? I'm good. Thanks for asking. Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you. And glad to have this conversation because, one of the things we talk about, particularly in Black and brown communities, is the whole issue of therapy, counseling. It's almost like, you're the bad person.
Yeah, like you're crazy.
Right. But the reality is you don't have to be crazy to seek therapy.
Yeah.
Give me some thoughts about basically therapy right now and some of the misconceptions.
Yeah, so some of the misconceptions are that you're crazy or you have to only talk about bad things, right? And that's not the reason. You could have a great day. You could just really want to flush out some of your thoughts. It could just be a safe space where you want to have somebody reflect back to you, what you're thinking. And so it doesn't have to be that you are crazy or going through something terrible.
Right. So you've been a therapist now for about 11 years?
Yeah, this will be my 11th year.
Wow. How has it changed actually down through the years? I mean, we just came out of COVID and obviously, and I don't want to say we're out of it because for people who still are there, they're like, keep it real.
Right.
But the COVID pandemic, not at the height of it, but truly coming out of the height of it to where we are today. How have things transcended through the years?
Yeah, I think that we're just so much more open to therapy and talking about it now. And there is still, for the Black and brown community and some communities too, there's still a little bit of trepidation. Like, I don't really know if I want to, but I think just talking about it, talking about going to therapy, talking about the fact that something could be potentially wrong and that there's nothing wrong with seeing a therapist, I feel like that came out of COVID or the pandemic, and that's been a beautiful thing to see. A lot of education.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you seeing any common themes in the things that people are talking about with you?
Everybody's a narcissist, and everybody is toxic, and depression, anxiety, and stress has been something that I think is more prevalent. And I don't know that and when I say prevalent, I really just mean in terms of talking about it because, it's been a thing, it's been there, but people have been, I think, just more quiet about it.
What about trauma? Because I think when we talk about looking at COVID, that's been traumatic.
Yeah.
The opportunity to watch George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, watching these play out right on television.
Yeah, in front of us.
Traumatic.
Very traumatic. I do think that trauma is another thing that we have discussed a bit more. And if I'm being honest, I hope I don't get canceled for this, right? But I think that there was a time where talking about trauma in relation to the Black community was a bit more mainstream. And I think that was closer to those events. Right now, I think that it has somewhat changed and it's almost kind of gone back to what status quo was before the pandemic. Right. But I think in Black and brown communities, there's been a lot more talk, around. Well, there's always been talk, right? So.
Right. But I think you raise a good point because when we talk about that, like during then it was heightened. We're talking about it. Now it's like we're on to the next thing. And I don't want to call that guy's name out, but you spend more time talking about him than about the trauma, right? So,
yeah.
I mean, that's it. What about couples? How are you seeing the family dynamic? Are you seeing a lot of couples come across the stage?
Yeah, so I love to work with couples. Those are like my favorite people to work with outside of depression and anxiety. But couples and communication has been really, really like beating down my door because it's like, no, talk to him, talk to her, especially after a lot of couples during the pandemic. It was new for dating apps, and so people were just moving a little bit faster, right? Because there's nothing that they could do besides like hang out, and so people were moving in together sooner.
Right.
Or you had couples at each other's necks, right? You've seen a lot of breakups during the pandemic, right? And so communication has been one of the main things that I think has had people really like, I need to get into therapy right now.
Right.
Yeah.
I had somebody I know said I had to go to therapy because I had to really find out that I'm living with somebody. And we're always going, but now we had to actually live together through the pandemic. And there were a whole lot of couples who really struggled because this was the first time of really being able to intersect like that.
Right. And I think it was so interesting that it happened in 2020 because it was like, oh, now we have very clear vision about who we are talking to, who we're living with. Like, oh, wait, do I even know you for real?
Right.
Yeah, so that was interesting.
Another issue that I think people talk about a lot is that whole work-life balance, right? And I'm sure that's a topic of conversation that comes across your desk, right? Maybe I'm working too hard. Maybe I'm not enjoying my life. Maybe this, maybe that. First of all, as you hear it, how common is it?
It's very common, especially Beyonce, You Won't Break My Soul, right? The whole working and overworking and then working from home, working remotely. I think that's when companies really started to take advantage of employees. And so it's extremely common. I think at least if I see 10 people in a day, at least 9 of them are talking about work stress.
So how do you guide them through that whole place of balance? Because I know in therapy, the job is to get us to talk, but really, we're looking for some, some help here.
Yeah. So in terms of work-life balance, it's more about setting boundaries. So that's the work that I end up doing, because it's how do you say no? How do you say I'm not able to take this on? I don't have the capacity, and really actually have your actions follow that. Because you can say, oh, no, I'm not able to do that, but then you're staying late after work, right? So it's kind of like, we're not paying attention to you because you're going to do it anyway.
Yeah. So you have a great toolbox here of resources, and I know you've got also an event coming up.
Yes, yeah. So speaking about the couples and speaking about the people that I've been seeing over the pandemic, so loneliness really set in for real. And so out of that bred 2 events that I had last year called The Right Way to Date. So it was dating panels talking about what do you do, where do you go, if you're online, how do you approach people. So those are things I love to talk about. But at the events, it was like, well, no, for real, where do we go?
Right.
Right? And so I was like, you know what? You don't have anywhere to go? You're tired of the dating apps? Now that we're out of the pandemic, well, we're a little bit, it's less intense, right? So like, I'm outside, but I don't really want to talk to people like that. I don't know if all the women are like, I got it, I don't need you to talk to me, right? So now I scheduled a speed dating event, right? So Sunday, the 25th, so that's this Sunday coming up. Age range is going to be 28 to 45. And so the men and the women, actually the women are sold out, so we need the men to come on and purchase the tickets.
Right.
And so what we're going to do is have a game night in the beginning, and then we'll have the speed dating portion. So it'll be 5 to 6 minute dates. All the men will move around, the women will stay seated. And when you match, you get a planned date, right? So as soon as you match, I will plan the date for you, no problem. And so you don't have to worry about the stress of planning the date. But this is more dates for less money and less time, so it's really a no-brainer.
So when people do the speed dating, what's the response like?
So there are people who really genuinely enjoy speed dating because they get more dates, more time, right? More dates, less time, less money, right?
Right.
And there are people that thrive in these settings, but then there are some people who they want to be there, but there's just like a little bit of trepidation because it's like, what do I talk about, right? So I give you guided questions. I am trained to build connection in like 2 or 3 minutes.
Right.
So I'm giving you guided questions. I'm doing icebreakers so that you ease into where you need to be.
So if I'm going out with somebody and they ask me how many dates I've been on, I tell them like, I've been through 10. I'm like, but it was speed dating. Just saying, how does that play out?
But what do you mean? Like if you're just meeting somebody else who was not in speed dating?
I met somebody else and they say, well, how many dates have you been on? Wow, I actually went on like 7.
I mean,
7, I was actually speed dating.
Right, that's an interesting conversation starter though. That'll throw somebody off. And they'll see that you're open if you went to speed dating.
All right, as long as you got, all right. Thank you so much, Quinelle, for being with us. Now listen, so tell people about the date and time of the event again. I'm gonna give it.
Yes, so it is this Sunday at 4 p.m. It's from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. It is in Queens, New York. And if you want tickets, you just go to www.counselingtocomfort.com.
All righty. Thank you so much for being with us, Quinelle Hickman. She is the founder of Counseling to Comfort. Now, again, if you do want more information, want to find out about that event, go ahead, find out. Visit the website, counselingtocomfort.com. We encourage you, don't go anywhere. We got more open coming up right after this.